Hey everybody, it's David, and we're back. Cage by the Page is back. Can you believe that? It's been a minute. I know. I am joined by my beautiful co-host today, Winona. Winona, say hi.
Hi, welcome back.
I'm thrilled for us to get back, and today we're going to be covering a really cool book. It's a little bit of an old one, but a goodie. It's The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Winona has some experience. I have no experience aside from the movies when they first came out. So it's been kind of a minute. I know that the book was published in 2008, and I guess it's the trilogy. But now that they came out with a prequel, right? Recently.
Two prequels came out just
Okay.
recently.
Yeah. Dealing with Snow, right? President Snow,
Ballad of
Emperor Snow.
Songbird and Snakes deals with President Snow, and then I haven't read this one, but Sunrise on the Reaping is Haymitch's story of the games.
Oh, when did Sunrise of the Reaping come out?
This year it came out just a couple months ago, I think.
Okay,
Maybe
okay, okay. So wait a minute. So it's not actually that far off in terms of us catching on a little bit of the coattails of people talking about these books again.
well,
Um,
that's the reason I brought it up was because so I had read the book when I was 14 or 15.
uh
So this was like 20, I'm gonna age myself clearly, 2010-ish.
Ooh, 2010.
Um, I was a freshman in high school when I started reading it. Um, and the girl that gave me the book, she was like the valedictorian of my high school. I love her. I
That's
don't talk
cool.
to her anymore, but
Oh,
she was very cool at the time, and she gave me the book. And I became obsessed with the series at like 14, 15, and then um I believe that was the year that Mockingjay, the third book, came out because I had read them in pretty quick succession.
okay.
Um but yeah, I'm pretty sure that Sunrise on the Reaping came out this year. Yeah,
Okay.
Mockingjay came out in August of 2010. So
Okay.
that was the year that I read pretty much the whole series.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is my first foray aside from watching the movies, which I thought were, by the way, pretty good. I didn't think the last movie, which was two movies, needed to happen. It could have been one movie, you know what I mean? But that was kind of the thing they were doing. I think they did that with Harry Potter for sure. I don't know if they did. Maybe Shades of Grey, maybe 50 Shades of Grey. They
So
did that with Twilight as well, actually.
I think it started with Harry Potter.
Hmm.
Deathly Hallows
Yeah.
became two movies. And then all of the YA movies that were coming out around the same time all did that. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got
yeah.
Twilight and then you got Hunger Games. Um I those are the only ones I remember off the top of my head, but the part 1, part 2 thing started to happen during that time.
Right.
And I think more people would agree with you when it comes to Mockingjay because I felt that way as well. But you haven't read the third book.
Right. I haven't
There,
read the I so I only read the first book, and I actually have not gone back to rewatch the movies for this review.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of like, if I make any comparisons, they're kind of vague because I can't really remember the movie as well. Although I will say the first movie, I think, definitely had more stuff I remember from it than the prior, I guess, what, like, three after that. So,
I think the first movie is pretty one to one, like book to movie is pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah,
I would
surprisingly.
say Mockingjay is the one that's not as
Mm,
one to one.
okay,
It's decent. It's really decent, but I don't think it's as one to one as the first movie is.
okay, okay. So I guess I should talk a little bit about the setting. The book takes place in a post-apocalyptic future. It's a dystopian novel, as the YAs tend to lean. A nation called Panem. It's I guess it's in North America, like far
It's Pan
future.
Am.
Panam,
Mhm.
Panem,
Yeah.
Panem. What, Pan Am?
Pan Am.
All right, whatever. So there's 12 colonies, but really there's a 13th colony that was decimated because they rebelled against against the capital, which is a city in the Rocky Mountains. And oppression is a big theme of this book. The capital definitely does a lot. It controls the media. It controls what each district is tasked to do for them. So, for example, where Katniss Everdeen, the main character, is from, the 12th district, they mine coal. So we learn a little bit about that, and that her and spoilers. I'm just saying it. I'm not doing a half and half. It's just a spoiler video. If you haven't read the book or
If
seen
you
the
haven't read it
movies,
by now, I don't know what to tell you. It's
yeah,
been
it's been a while.
15 years since the third book came out.
Yeah. So yeah, we learned that her father was a coal miner, and he died in a big coal mining accident.
Mhm.
Her mother is a nurse, or like a doctor, I guess. Yeah, a doctor, really.
Yeah.
For yeah, for the 12th district. It's never I'm not really ever clear on how big the district is. Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about just a city? Because it feels like a small enough town. It feels like a town, honestly, because of the way it's kind of framed.
I think it is mostly a town. I think the I guess the larger piece of it is the mines,
Hmm.
because if I remember correctly, we never get to see the mines
Right, we
in
don't.
any of the books.
Oh well, I don't know
Um,
about the rest of the books, but okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we never get to see the mines in the book, so we really don't know the vast we know that obviously they're coal miners and that
Right.
they distribute coal throughout the entire country, but that's the only I it seems like a walkable district though. It seems like everybody knows each
Yeah.
other, and
Yeah, it
it
feels like it's a small town, like it's truly small town. So I don't really understand the size of the district, I guess. It's very nebulous.
yeah.
Everybody pretty much knows Katniss. And I think there's only one baker in this town. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like a very weird way to I guess frame it, because I guess the idea is, like, I mean, the colonies, oh, America, like it's like Panem is
Yeah.
supposed to be pretty large, right? I mean, they have,
Mhm.
like, and even the capital is very nebulous in terms of, like, I guess a lot of people live there, but it's not real. You don't really get into, I guess, those specifics, really, which is fine. I don't know. Maybe the further on you get into the series, the more it kind of expresses itself. So I know that District 12 is in, like, located around the Appalachian region, so East Coast. Um, you know, um, and people are just
Based on based on this map that I'm seeing on Screen Rant, I would share my screen, but I don't
oh,
know if I'm
well, you can, but I can also screen rant.
Screen Rant.
Hunger
What each
Games.
district looks like, I think is known for. That's the article I'm looking at.
Oh, okay. All right, hold on. I got this. There we go. So I am sharing it. You might not see it. I could share it with you as well. Stream. There you go.
Yeah. So District 12 is what is that? Up to Ohio, like past Ohio,
Yeah.
and then over to I would say that's
Actually, I would say Pennsylvania. That's what it ends, probably by Pennsylvania.
yeah, like right on the border of
Y-
Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Yeah. This is actually
Well,
an interesting map. um.
um, I do think that this is kind of like a collected map based on like what people think,
Uh huh.
because I don't know if Suzanne Collins has been super clear about it,
Right.
but I also might be pulling that out of my ass, so who knows.
Yeah. That's
Um,
fair.
District 12 seems to be like the northeast area,
Yeah. Jersey proud. Jersey strong. Maine got decimated. I'm from Maine, so Maine got decimated. Do you see this? District 13 is Maine.
it also seems like District 13 goes into Canada, no?
Mm, yeah, like Nova Scotia.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the same with District 1 going into Canada, and District 7. And then you have the Wilds. I don't even know if the Wilds come up in the books.
It might come up in later books, but from what I remember from the first three, I don't think that the wilds ever come up.
Okay.
But that might be different because obviously there's a new book out now. So I'm currently listening to Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, but
Okay.
I'm obviously not going to go into that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Also, everybody take a gander at District 2, Florida, and Georgia, and Georgia. Look, it's all gone.
Yeah, they actually do talk about that in the series. I don't remember which book it is, but this whole area basically just fell. Like
Okay.
there's no Florida, there's no Georgia. It fell into the water.
Same with
Um,
California. Look at the pieces of Cali. It's all kind of
oh, and District 4 is in Mexico.
yeah. That's crazy, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely lore that I have not explored,
This
and
is deeper lore than I even considered.
this is not talked about in the first book whatsoever.
No,
Just
no,
FYI.
no.
I will also add that the few things that we heard about, like there's like technological prowess from some of the different districts. I believe like one of the kids from one of them is obviously like work out how to use bombs. Like he was able to, um, you know, um, do that, or like even PETA with the way he was talking about the breads of the different districts and stuff like that. Like some of them use sesame seeds and other
Yeah.
things like that. So I think that was actually Rue's district. But I guess
Well,
we should try to go on in terms of like the rest of the flow of the 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 actual book. So
yeah.
okay, Hunger Games. You get into the games by your name being in a lottery. Normally, when you start out, I think at age 12, I believe. Um,
Yeah.
that
Well,
you're only in there in a big bucket of names, like just one name in there. And then the
mhm,
older you get and more times you haven't been drawn up for the lottery, the more names get put in there. And you can also buy oh, I forgot what they're called, but basically you could buy more chips, but those chips give you
mhm,
more food, I guess, or something like that.
yeah.
But if you do that, then your name gets put into the bucket like a dozen more times or something. So the likelihood of you getting chosen is quite large. And so Katniss lives with her mother and her sister, Prim, who, for the most part, is very dainty. Prim is dainty, except for that she is very much like her mother when it comes to blood, guts, viscera,
Mm,
like just able to survive
yeah.
that. Um, what else? So and Katniss herself, she runs around the fields and the grasslands and the forests, basically hunting. She's an amazing hunter. Her father gave her some skills, like taught her some skills with the bow. So her thing is the bow, but she's able to be quiet. She's able to camouflage. She's really good at just being a very good hunter. She generally does all of that with her best buddy Gale, but there is a little bit. He's an older boy who also has survived the lottery like now a dozen times or whatever, and his name is way more in there than Katniss's even, or something around about. So they have the same amount of times in there. So, but they link up in the forest. He's a great trapper, while she's a great bow hunter. So she's able to kill whatever. And yeah, they basically kind of make a life for themselves, being able to do that kind of stuff. And throughout the book, it's a little bit like there's kind of there's that I will say it's like with Gale, I don't think there was that much of a bond. Yes, they were like running around and stuff like that, and they were talking about running away at one point, but it didn't really I didn't really feel like, oh, this is definitely a really strong love interest or something like that. I mean, yes, there is a little bit of that, but most of the story is with PETA. PETA is another kid in the town. He has like a few brothers, older brothers and stuff, and he's basically the bread maker's son. The bread maker is a really good guy. He used to be in love with Katniss's mother, but it never worked out. Katniss's mother went with some dude in the mine, but that dude's a great singer, so I guess that kind of makes out for it, makes up
Yeah.
for it. And so yeah, so in that little first half of the book, we're kind of getting ready to go to the lottery, get the ticket. Of like who's gonna get chosen. There's two tributes, a boy and a girl from each district. Um, Prim, she's 12, so this is her first year. So her name's in there only once. While
Mhm,
Katniss's is like 64 times or something crazy.
yeah.
Um, and you get introduced to Haymitch, who was a previous winner of the games. He's a drunk now. Now, not surprising, like after reading the book and the PTSD that you develop from the games, and the fact that these winners, then have
Mhm.
to teach the next group of kids to go out there and fight in the games. Which I should also explain. The games are basically you get whisked away to the capital. You're put up against all the other kids from all the other districts, and only one survives. One kid, even from your own crew,
Yeah.
survives.
Yes,
If you win,
there's 24 contestants,
yep.
and you have to outlive all of those 24 contestants. Well, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also facing whoever your district chose as your opponent,
Yeah.
and you could have grown up with this person. This could be a close friend, it could even be a family member.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so there's a lot of trauma involved, and then the mentors are people that have already won the games.
Yeah.
So they have to basically come back every single year and watch kids kill each other, and their kid that they are trying to connect to, that they're trying to make sure survives as well, they have to watch them either survive or, in most situations, die,
Right.
because there's a 1 in 24 chance that you win the games.
Right. 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 And so leading up to that, we also get introduced to Effie, but her like she's a very one note simple character, I guess, especially in the first book, where it's just like
Yeah.
she's kind of clueless, a little clueless. Like she understands a little bit, but at the same time, she's more like she's still invested in the capital and just kind of
Yeah.
having like a clean look about her, and she just wants to promote the thing. Haymitch, on the other hand, is just completely a flat out drunk. He hates what he has to do, but eventually gets to the job of kind of training these kids a little bit, and then definitely helps them out when they finally are in the games with gifts from sponsors and stuff, which are very important because you do not get medicine out there. You do not get weaponry. You do not get clothes or anything you could possibly need. You have to either scrounge for it, which the game makers make it a very difficult job because they'll turn up the heat so your water sources are gone, or they will fire blast you or whatever and give you burns and scars or kill you even. They don't really care. They definitely do it for the media attention, for the blood and the bloodbath and the viscera and the gore, and they definitely want to create situations and tense situations between the tributes too. So the hungrier you get, the more likely it is you're going to be a lot sharper when you're met up against somebody else. So anyway, the mayor picks the name out of the hat, and instead of it being Katniss or Gale, who have the great chance there, it's Prim, the very sweet, innocent girl that has a pet goat that everybody knows. That eventually you find out it was a lame goat, but was brought back to life by the wise care of Prim. Actually, Prim took care of the goat, and the goat got strong again. And so Katniss can't stand for that. She's like, hell no, my sister ain't going. And then kind of like rushes in and takes the ticket instead. And then the
Yeah.
next person that gets picked is Peeta. Now this is all great for the games because this is a lot of tension, a lot of, like, already Katniss is being framed for having all this emotional draw. Like from the other districts, a lot of people aren't. There are districts that are not starving and dying every day, that are probably a way stronger build and are
Yeah.
also preparing for the games, even though technically you're not supposed to prepare for any of the games. Um,
Which
so
just seems crazy.
yeah.
It seems crazy that first of all, from the time, I believe it's 12 to 18
Mm-hmm.
is when you can be drawn for the Hunger Games,
Right.
right? So once you reach 18, no matter how, basically your name just gets removed from the drawing, and you can no longer be a tribute in the Hunger Games after that point. But before that point, you're told that, one, this is a punishment to all of the districts, that
Yeah.
because District 13 had revolted,
Yes.
and this is how they're going to make sure that nobody ever revolts again, because this is your punishment,
Yep.
right? But then that from the time you're 12 to you're 18, you could end up in a situation where you have to kill 23 other children.
Yep.
And maybe you're not the one physically killing every single one of them, but you
Yeah.
have to outlast them. You have to outlive them.
Outsmart
And
them. Yeah.
you're not supposed to train in any kind of way. You're
Right.
not supposed to like be strong enough. And in some of these cases, like there are 12-year-old children going into these
Right.
games, going up against an 18-year-old,
Right. 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 Right.
going
Yeah.
up against somebody who's 6 years through
Well, not
puberty.
only that, but the benefit of the games is that if your district wins, that district gets way more food, and so the more winners you produce, the more survivors you produce, the stronger your district becomes. Where your people are all fed, your people are all much more capable to continue winning, versus weaker and weaker districts that keep losing every year. Like Haymitch is the only winner in like ever, or well, I think this is like the 75th, right? Or the 74th. It's the
The
74th,
74.
right?
Yeah.
Because 75th is the second
It's
book.
catching fire, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you have a lot of time to build up a community, and it becomes a little bit of like the indoctrination of it all, like, oh, well, we're always winning. Why do we care if District 12 is starving all the time? We have the food we need, so
Also important to note that the districts are not equitable. It's
no.
not like District 1 is starving and District 12 is starving just as much.
Hmm.
They all produce different things
Right.
for the country, meaning that they have different levels of food, of money, of whatever.
Right.
And so District 12 is the poorest district because they produce mining materials.
Right.
And because of that, they don't have as much access to food. Like, and I think District 3, which is the agricultural district,
Hmm.
who they're not supposed to be eating the food, but
Right.
they likely do. They
Yeah.
likely do because it is more accessible. And then on top of that, District 1 is the richest district besides the capital because the capital is not considered a district.
Right.
The capital is separate from all of the
It's like
districts.
it's like Rome, or like the Vatican or whatever. It's its own little country.
Yeah, or like
So
DC. DC is
yeah.
not
Oh, DC.
technically a
Yeah.
state.
Exactly. So going forward, PETA, the bread maker's son, he's pretty unassuming for the most part. You do get a little backstory between PETA and Katniss when they were way younger, like 5 years old or something. She was starving, and PETA, seeing that, she was just, she gets yelled at by his mother and whatever, make sure not to feed the wild rat or whatever out there, kind of thing. PETA decides to like burn a little bread and throw it her way without his mother noticing, but I think he still got bludgeoned or whatever for even burning the bread, so his mother sucks, is the point. Katniss, got the bread and never kind of looked PETA's way. I mean, they kind of always noticed each other, but PETA was always noticing Katniss the entire time. And then obviously Katniss kind of gets with Gale because he's a strong, competent person to kind of survive the stuff. So anyway, they get on a train together. They meet. They finally get to speak to Haymitch a little bit. And Effie, like I said, Effie's a pretty one-note character. She's just very excited, happy, bubbly, whatever. Although wants to help them, because they are representing her district. So this looks good in her eyes when she keeps going back to the capital or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
while Hamish is kind of like, just trying to suppress his demons by alcoholism. And under super high speed train to the capital, he kind of sizes them up a little bit, figures out kind of what they're good at, and starts kind of plotting, I guess, a little bit. He definitely notices immediately that PETA is in love with Katniss, and eventually that's kind of the angle. So most of the book takes place where it's like, Katniss and PETA need to be a love story. If we create a strong bond that everybody's talking about, that everybody's thinking about, even if PETA is not this masterful hunter or whatever, the people, he might get sponsors on the mere fact that he's attached to Katniss, who everybody seems to start falling in love with throughout the book, because she is very competent in like everything she does pretty much. When they get into the capital, they get dressed up in these immaculate, amazing suits. The girl on fire, so the suit bursts into flames, and so they make a grand entrance. Their what is it, their fashion designer Cinna, he's like, hey, you guys gotta hold hands, make sure you hold hands, kind of thing. Well, he doesn't say it out loud. It's more like there is defiance in everything, because you're not supposed to hold hands. They're supposed to be enemies and stuff, but these characters, they all find ways to kind of defy the capital in like small little ways, to kind of like sidestep the capital's authority, because the capital does not care about you. They are the oppressive regime, fascist, things
Yeah,
things
I
of that
think
nature.
it's important that for the capital citizens, the Hunger Games is a reality TV show. It is
Yes.
sport. It is not, they're not seeing it in the perspective, which is that 24 children are fighting to the death. They are not
Yeah.
seeing it that way. They're seeing it as, this is a reality TV show and I'm betting on my horse. That's
Right.
really how they see it.
Right, even when it comes to later on in the book, so Cinna has a couple of helpers. Well, Cinna has Portia, but Portia's cool for the most part. But there's another couple of helpers with Cinna,
Mhm.
and they're basically talking when Katniss, well, spoiler, she survives. When Katniss is getting like fixed up or whatever for the interviews and stuff at the end of the book, they're just talking about how they felt when they saw this kid get
Yeah.
rammed through by a spear, or they saw these mutts eat this other kid, or whatever, and where were they at the time, and that kind of thing. They're just kind of jovial about it. They're just kind of like laughing about this and that, when this is like disgusting. This is
Yeah,
truly
this is
like,
the worst thing that could possibly happen to any of these children.
right.
It's the worst thing that could possibly happen in, and it happens every single
And
year,
so,
right?
and also, if you are a capital citizen and you have a capital kid, your kid isn't sent to the Hunger Games.
No. No, it's only the districts, and the district children are seen as
Fodder, TV fodder.
fodder,
Yeah,
enemies,
yeah.
like the district children are basically like, well, they shouldn't have revolted, even
You,
though that
you
happened
you have the Eloy.
74 years
You
ago.
have the Eloy and the Morlocks, basically. Where the Eloy are truly useless. But they have all this great tech. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it's just class warfare. It's a book about class warfare, pretty much.
And I don't think you learn this until a little bit later in the series, but um you basically learn that the capital citizens have always been capital citizens.
Hmm.
It's not like you
You
can
can
move
move
through,
into being a capital
you
citizen.
can't move through the ranks of being a capital citizen. That's
Yeah,
not an option.
yeah.
So, and the only way that people do end up moving through the ranks is through the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
the only way.
Right.
And it almost never happens.
Yeah. So okay, so going forward, you get the spectacle. Peta is playing up the love angle, but it's not really a playing up for him. He is truly actually in love with Katniss from the like start.
And has
Katniss
been.
and has been. Katniss, on the other hand, thinks that it's all an act and all a play, and it's Haymitch kind of working on Peta more than her. Haymitch and her have kind of a weird, kind of standoffish energy, because I guess they're very similar. They're both survivors, just in character level. I don't know. There's just, there's that feeling of that. I know Katniss impresses the game makers, because you have to kind of show off some of your skills. So she's able to put, an arrow through an apple on this big pig feast table or whatever, and that is like, oh, she actually fired on us, but not really, because she took an apple out. I mean, she just got their attention, and that was a great way to get attention, and that really helps her out in terms of getting more sponsorships and stuff like that, or more favor, currying favor. So
Yeah.
she got a really high score, so because they get all scored. Pete also got a great score. He got like an 8 or a 9, right? He got an 8, I think.
Yeah, but she doesn't know how he got that score.
I also am like, well, even with the camo or the cake making or whatever, which was kind of like his thing, right? He's able to, dress. He's able to do camouflage really well, because he's a baker's son, baker, cake maker, whatever. So he's able
Yeah.
to dress up. But, yeah, I feel like Peta definitely got less shine in some of this, stuff. I don't know. I feel like with Peta, his definite ability of like, oh, I can camo myself, it obviously helps him survive, and also he was, when they get into the games finally, he's able to team up with the high standing rat pack of, like, Kato the killer, and all the tough district kids,
The career kids
the
that are
career
like
kids.
District 1 and District 2.
But you also
The
don't know really how he got to that point. You know what I mean? Like, by the time he meets up with Katniss, he's pretty weak. Like, she needs to take care of him because he got fucked up by Kato when he
Mhm.
was trying to save her. Um you know, again, you don't get a lot of shine from and then after that he's hobbled forever. Like, he loses a leg to the games basically. Um
Mhm.
so yeah, I guess part of that, is like, I guess you don't want to take away from Katniss's story. Maybe that's what it is. But
I
I
think there's layers to it that you learn later in the series, but Katniss is seen as a lot more strategic. Like,
yeah,
she is a lot more thoughtful about trying to get home because her whole goal is I need to get home to my family,
right.
right? Like, I need to make sure that Prim is okay. But she's also willing to die if it means that her family is okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like towards
she's
the end of the book,
sacrificed, right.
she's like, I am willing to die if her mother is okay.
Right.
That's her whole goal. That's her goal from jump, because in the beginning you learn that she was trying to keep Prim from the Hunger Games as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
She was putting her name in 100 times
Yeah.
so that they could have food, that they would be okay. And her entire goal throughout the book is to make sure that Prim and her mother is okay. And she's also frustrated with her mom because she
Bailed
felt like
on the
her mom,
family.
yeah, her mom kind of withdrew after her father died,
Right.
and she felt like she was the one who had to fight to keep them alive, to keep herself, to keep Prim alive. And that's how she started hunting in the first place. That's how
Mm,
she got in with Gale in the first place, is because, yes, she was taught how to hunt with her dad, and her dad did. And it's also important to note that the hunting is illegal. She is
right.
not supposed to be hunting.
Right.
She's not supposed to be getting any more food than what is available to them through basically trading. That's their only option. And so her entire, I guess, story arc is being against the Capitol. Her entire story arc is this isn't okay. And the only reason that she ends up in the games originally is because she doesn't listen to Gale about running away.
Mhm.
Because in
Yeah.
the very beginning of the book, he says, we could just run away.
Well, yeah, and you also get hints that Gale is very against the Capitol, very vocally against the Capitol, saying it out loud rather than thinking it all the time, like Katniss, or,
Well,
close to thinking it
the
all
thing
the time.
is that, you kind of get complacent. This has been going on for 74 years. And in the book you get this sense that people are just like, it is what it is. We send our kids to this terrible thing every single year and we allow them to die.
Hmm.
And Gail's like, but that was never okay. It wasn't okay when it
Yeah.
first happened, and it's not okay now.
Yeah. It's the same thing when we conscript, kind of sucker kids into being in the military. That's how I feel. It's sucker,
Agree,
you know,
agree. And
like, there's a lot of that kind of like um complacency, I guess, in terms of being the
not just
empire.
complacency, there's like honor. There's like,
Yeah.
you're a hero for America. But when we look at the wars that have happened in America, the vast majority have been for capital greed. It hasn't really been about protecting anybody
Mhm. Yeah.
besides capital interest.
Right.
And there's studies that show that the vast majority of recruiters go to lower income areas because they know that these kids are less likely to go to college.
Right. Right.
They
Well,
know that these kids
and
cannot
that's
afford those
that is
things.
what is happening in the districts. Like I said,
And
no
that's
capital
exactly what's
kid.
happening in the districts.
Yeah, no capital kid.
And the ones that end up volunteering in District 1 and District 2,
Yeah.
they have trained for it.
Right, right, right,
They have trained for it their entire lives to be strong, to have, muscular stature, to at least have brute force,
right.
right? Like, they have
Yeah,
some level of and Katniss can't do that.
right.
She can't
Always
take
on the
on more
back foot.
tropes.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's on the back foot. District 12, District 11, all of these districts that are, like, lower down the totem pole that are making less and less money, they can't train for this. They barely have enough food to survive, let alone train for their death.
right. So, going back, uh, they're in the games. Katniss is pretty much able to kind of avoid most of the violence in the very beginning. She's able to arm herself. She teams up with Rue, who reminds her of her sister. Back in District 12, Rue, yeah, Rue, poor Rue. Um, she's a really sweet girl. She's able to just jump on trees like a little flying squirrel or whatever.
Mhm.
And she's Prim's age basically. I believe
Yeah.
so. Just bad luck. And unfortunately they come up with a great plan. There's a big shocking reveal that PETA has joined up with the big bad crew from districts 1 and 2 and whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and so they're trying to get Katniss. He's pretending that he's also willing to murder her or whatever. But they're unable to reach her because she's able to climb trees and pretty high, and she's lightweight, so she's able to actually not break any branches. They are, but Rue gives her a great idea. Rue was like hiding out and stuff. In the in the you good there? Did you have a little bit of a guest?
Anyway.
Oh, okay, guest appearance. There's like a tracker jacker nest, which is basically like yellow jackets. But they inject you with some sort of like crazy neurotoxin, which makes you go a little bit insane, a little bit. You get on a really crazy trip, make you really sick. And Rue's like, hey, knock those down. Um, and then get rid of the kids while they're sleeping or whatever in the twilight morning hours. So that's what Katniss does. They run away. Rue and her, continue talking. She learns a little bit more about where Rue's from and stuff like that, and you kind of get a little bit of bonding situation. And mind you, all of this, like the games, it's in its own little bubble, but it's all being filmed. All the people at the Capitol are watching. It's reality TV for them. This is all great, for them. And eventually they come up with a plan to try to get some more food, supplies, etc. Um, although Katniss does a great job, Rue does get caught out and gets killed by one of the Capitol kids, pretty brutally.
Mhm.
Katniss, is very distraught about it, and kind of plots her revenge against against the rest of those kids.
We simply cannot breeze over this part because
Yeah, go ahead.
sobbed. I
Oh, okay.
sobbed through that part. So
Yeah.
I read the book obviously when I was 14, and
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand the I guess, like, the gravity of that part when I was that age, because I don't know, like, you just don't have, like, the context, you don't have the emotional, like, maturity to be able to fully understand how serious it is that, one, this 12-year-old girl, her first time going into I this is her first
Battle.
tribute, it's her first
Yeah.
drawing, and she
Yeah.
ends up in the games, and the fact that Katniss did this to prevent her own little sister, who's the same age,
Right.
who, she does all of this to make sure that her family, her sister is okay. She gets into the games and she finds Rue,
Yeah.
who didn't have anybody to step in for her, that wouldn't have stepped in for her.
Right.
And that girl dies, and like I don't know, that part messed me up. I was sobbing through it because um when she dies, Katniss comes to her, and like she's not fully gone just yet. Like she's
Yeah.
close to dying and there's no way to save her.
Yeah.
And Katniss wants to save her but can't. And then
Right.
she decorates her body in
Flowers,
flowers.
yeah.
Um,
Which is a big no-no.
it's a big fuck you to the Capitol
Yeah,
to be like, one, her death is not in vain. Like
right,
the entire point of decorating her body in flowers is to make it known that the tributes are not they're kids. They're kids, they're children. They shouldn't just be fodder because a
right,
lot of like throughout the series you kind of hear the way that the Capitol talks about these kids as if they not that they deserve it per se, but that like it doesn't matter that their lives are null and void, that they just don't matter. And
right.
Katniss is like, we do. She does. She's 12 years old. Like, how dare you, basically? How
Yeah,
dare you put us all against each other? How dare you allow this 12-year-old child to die for fun? How
yeah,
dare you?
right.
And that whole part had me so messed up this time around.
Yeah.
I had to pause because I was listening to it on audio. I had to pause and just like
Mm.
work through my emotions because it's just so sad.
It is. Yeah. And like you said, like nobody stood up for Rue while,
Hmm.
like uh, Katniss's sacrifice at the lottery was huge. Like,
Yeah.
she was like she went up there and Haymitch makes a speech after that none of you would do this. None of you, like you're all cowards. And he falls
Yeah.
over drunk after that speech. But none of you would ever, and it hits home how powerful of a character Katniss is, like her inner strength, and that's what resonates with these people. They see
Yeah.
a leader. She is a leader, and whether or not she sees that in herself at this time, it is what it is. And this moment with Rue and just being able to kind of give her that burial, that kind of send off, and yeah, it's really, yeah, it's sad and it's moving, and I it was just, it is what it is.
And in the games, the kids, like when they die, there's like a lack of dignity.
Yeah,
They just
pine
they
boxes.
they come in with drones, they pick up the bodies, and they're just gone.
Yeah.
And they blast the people who died, like pictures of them to all of the tributes that
Well,
are left.
well, yeah.
And that's it.
At
That's
at
it.
at that
Again,
point, at that point, Katniss believes that the bodies get put up. They get taken away by hovercraft and they get put into a pine box and shipped back to their district. That is currently the belief that Katniss has.
yeah.
That is not what
No,
happens.
that's not what happened.
so then you really know how fucked up this place is.
Yeah. And it's also important to note that her doing that for Rue does end up building a sort of kind of like complacent relationship with the other District 11 kid.
Mhm.
Um, what is his name?
Thresh.
Thresh,
Yeah.
who is like, I owe you a debt. I could
Yeah.
kill you right now.
You know who Thresh reminds me of? He reminds me of oh man, Darrow's companion.
Sevron?
No, he gets killed in like book 2, I think. The big dude, the big berserker dude with like multiple arms. I just can't remember his name.
Ragnar.
Ragnar. Yeah, Thresh reminds me
Ragnar.
a little bit of Ragnar. Just
Ragnar's death.
yeah. Well, okay, we could talk about that in another
Spoiler.
episode. But anyway, yeah. Thresh definitely. Well, so okay, so moving forward, Katniss, there's a big announcement. They basically say, "Hey, now you know what? We've changed the rules. 2 people can win the games. This has never been done before." So she's like, "Shit, I gotta go get Peeta." At this time, she kind of figures out, okay, Peeta actually had been trying to help me, had warned me, had kept me from danger, and at the point that he was trying to save her and stuff, he got injured most likely, although not verified by her yet. She does find him down by the stream, although again, master at camo, he was able to keep himself hidden. um, and he's badly wounded, like, I mean, to the bone. He's got cut deep. So she takes care of him. In the time that she's taking care of him, they kind of make this kind of like romance blossom and grow. In Katniss's mind, at first, it's kind of a way to get more supplies because the capital people are eating that shit up, and Haymitch is able to get them to send medication and ointments. I mean, I kind of skipped over the part about the cannon fire and stuff like that, and Katniss did get burned, but she did get healed, so whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so and Rue also taught her some herbs and spices that you could put
Yeah.
on some wounds and stuff. So again, just glossing over some of that.
Hmm.
Yeah, Peta is fully totally in love. There's never any other thought. Katniss, on the other hand, is like warming up to Peta with the kissing and the hugging and the holding and getting him like fixed up and making him feel better and stuff like that. And they talk about the bread story. They talk about other stories in their like growing up together and how he always noticed her. And I think from what I can remember of the movie, I think this was way better in terms of like the romance building, the conflict of how Katniss feels. Although I don't feel the conflict she should have toward Gale, like because we didn't get a lot of time with Gale in the very beginning of the book. We understand that he's a suave guy and he's very capable, but that's kind of where it
Yeah.
ends for me. It's
In
that's
the book, in the very beginning, he kisses her,
mm-hmm.
and she's confused by this kiss because that has never really been their vibe. It has never, like, she's like, "Oh, he's an attractive guy and I'm well aware of that,
Yeah,
but he's my partner. He's
right,
my friend. He's
right.
She doesn't see him
She does,
in
but
a
she does,
romantic.
but she does
She
think
has a
about
moment
him.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
she
has a
does.
moment of
Yeah,
it. And I think it's because the kiss happens in the beginning that she has that moment. She's like, "Wait a second. Is this a romantic option? Like,
yes,
is that something that I would be open to?" And she also makes it pretty clear that romance is just not something she's interested in.
yeah. She's like,
She's
I'll
not
never have
interested.
kids. I'll never give you that
She's not
which you.
interested in
Right,
she even says, like, "I'm not interested in putting any more people into this world. I'm not interested in my children having to go through these like the Hunger Games. I'm not willing to watch my children starve. I'm not willing to for this to continue." She
right,
says that from the very beginning.
right.
And then with PETA, I think that their intimacy is it's coming from two different angles. For her, it's strategic. She's getting messages from Haymitch. It's like, "You're not getting shit
Mm-hmm.
until you show these people what they want to see, whether
Yeah,
you feel it."
I guess it is a little forced. I guess it's a little forced.
It's forced in the beginning,
In
but
the
then
beginning, right,
as you get through the cave and she's like actually getting to know who he was before the games, how he really did care about her, that he's always cared about her, even when they lived in the district, he wanted to make sure that she was okay. So when, like, for example, she would bring squirrels to his dad from her hunting adventures,
yeah,
and PETA would always make sure that his dad would give them strawberries
right,
because they loved strawberries. Prim loved strawberries. So they would always make sure of that. And even though he knew that he wasn't sure that there was any romantic feelings on her part in the district, he still wanted her to be okay.
mm,
And she doesn't know those things. She's not aware that that's happening on his end
right,
throughout, like, in the district. So for her, it's strategic. I want him to survive because we can survive together. I
yeah.
want him to be okay because we can be okay together. But it's not romantic until they're like he's almost healed.
Yeah, pretty much. So going forward, what happens next is that he gets a little bit healed, but not healed enough. They draw out more of the tributes into the cornucopia. There's some more supplies for help or whatever. Um, at that point, a few more people get killed or whatever. There's only really Kato, Foxface, Thresh at this point that are serious problems. Um, and so Kato eventually kills Thresh. Foxface gets accidentally killed by PETA because at that point Foxface is kind of like a really quick ninja esque type of assassin, uh,
Yeah.
kid killer. Um, so she's hungry, but everybody is hungry aside from these two because these two know how to like kind of well, Katniss knows how to hunt, so she was always going to have an edge in that sense. The rest of them
Yeah.
don't because they don't need to, I guess, is the big thing.
Yeah.
Because the haves never had
Yeah.
to fight and survive that way. You know what I mean? Or some of the other districts didn't. They yeah. Anyway,
The
uh,
desperation just isn't there in the other tributes. Like
right,
they don't
right.
have the same level.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say there is some of that because Rue was obviously capable in some of the
Yeah, but
healing
Rue was
herbs
the
and
next
stuff.
poorest district, like
Yes.
Rue was District 11.
Right.
So she was also like they even said that if they were found eating the berries that she was picking every single day,
Right.
that they would be severely punished for it.
Right. So anyway, PETA, not knowing any better, picks up some night I don't know, like nightshade, night blossom, whatever.
Nightshade berries, I think
Yeah,
is what it was.
something
Yeah.
like that. It might have been. Anyway, they're killer. And Foxface actually eats them and dies. So PETA accidentally kills her that way because she sneaks in and takes some of their food while they're out away from the campground. And then finally, it's the big
Finally,
showdown between Kato, Katniss, and PETA. They're brought back to the cornucopia. This is gonna be the big battle. You learn that Kato has a crazy little like mesh fiber suit that kind of protects him from any bow and arrow that Katniss hits him in the center mass. But if you go for the head or whatever, or the arm or the hand, I guess in this case, there is no protection. Anyway, he runs in from the fields, being chased by mutated mutt creatures that have human eyes, and we learn that those human looking mutt creatures are actually district kids that were all, here with the game. So Brew is part of the mutt pack. Thresh is part of the mutt pack. All these kids had been collected and mutated so that they can become like, yeah, that.
like wolves almost.
Yeah, exactly. Just fucking unbelievably gross. I don't remember if this was a plot line in the movie. Do you remember?
I think that it was, but I don't think that they really, I don't know, fleshed it out
Yeah, I'm not.
emotionally like
I'm
it
not
does
sure.
in the book.
Yeah,
In the book, like the realization that these mutations are part of um that were children in the games, like there's like this emotional moment where Katniss is like, I have to kill them again.
yeah,
And my only option is I do have to kill them. Like that, like they'll kill me. They have no, it doesn't seem like they have any like emotional draw back into, like they are
yeah,
not conscious. They're not emotionally conscious. So they're going after you either way. And obviously some of them have a reason to, they were killed in the games. But Rue has no reason to go after Katniss, but as this much she does.
yeah. So, Kato gets knocked into the horde. He fights for a while, able to survive a little bit, and then he finally dies. And eventually, the game makers are like, "Ah, we take it back. You actually do not get to have two winners. You're only one. Now kill each other." Um, Katniss and PETA basically decide not to. Although I will say, Katniss thought that PETA was going to lunge at her with his knife. Instead, PETA threw his knife into the lake. Katniss did have her bow ready to go though, so you kind of always Katniss is the born survivor. She trusts nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and PETA obviously is the full in love, and
Mhm.
they finally come to it. It's a little bit of Romeo and Juliet, in that let's just take the berries and die together. In their mind, not PETA's mind. PETA is dying for Katniss. He has no other thought. In
Yeah.
Katniss's mind, it's more like, fuck you, Capital. You're not getting one on me, and I'd rather also just, that's just kind of it. It's like her like kind of rebellion. Now, she also kind of wants to die for PETA as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, she does care about him and does not want to kill him.
Yeah.
So there is that part, but there is more to her feelings.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so
And this also realizes that if both of them die,
mhm.
there's nothing to show.
Yes.
She like in that moment right before they take the berries, and again, I didn't quite catch on to the depth of this when I was a teenager, but obviously as an adult, like it happens in such quick succession that, she goes from I'm willing to kill PETA to realizing that PETA wouldn't kill her to
Hmm.
then realizing that if we both die, the
Yeah.
Capitol has nothing to show for it. And she knows that the Capitol sees these games as a reality TV show.
Right.
They see these games as
This is
a
their
way.
way to keep them all in check.
Yeah, they're keeping them entertained. They're keeping the districts in check. They're making sure that the districts won't revolt again.
Right.
So she's like, if we both die, they're not going to let that happen. They just
Hmm.
won't let it happen. That and even if it does, it does.
Yeah,
So she
exactly.
takes a risk.
Yeah, take the risk. And the risk pays off because they save them. They save them, they patch them up, they fix them, they get them on interviews. The big interview is, did you did you do it because you were actually in love with PETA, or were you kind of saying fuck you to the Capitol in a way? Like that's how the questions were kind of like aimed at.
Yeah,
Because if she does admit to fucking the Capitol anyway, she is gonna die, and probably her district is gonna blow up because that's how it goes in this place. But she plays the game beautifully. Haymitch couldn't be prouder of her ability. And then they're being whisked away home, and they are home free. Unfortunately, Katniss has very conflicted feelings about living with PETA forever and whatever. And her emotions toward Gale. Again, I just don't. I never felt warranted, but whatever. At least in this book, sorry.
yeah,
Um, so PETA realizes is really heartbroken about it, but still is willing to pretend to be with her just because he understands that he's not completely like
yeah,
understanding. So that's how the book ends, basically them holding hands and the camera's trained on them, while they do their tour, I guess,
yeah.
of whatever the districts. So that's what do you think? The Hunger Games.
I mean, for me, it's a modern classic. Like that first book, I do think that if you read the first book and enjoyed it, and you did, go on, continue reading because the next two books are insane.
Yeah.
The second book I would say is the best book in the series, and
Okay.
the third book I think just wraps it up really well. Now, I haven't finished the two prequels that have come out. I mean, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes has been out for a while, but Sunrise on the Reaping I haven't read yet. But Susanna Collins really knows how to write a dystopian novel,
Yeah.
so I'm I know it's going to be good, and this is probably like one of my like 6-star reads. It's like one of those I,
Okay.
I can't talk more positively about it, and I think when I first read it, I definitely didn't have that opinion. Like
Okay.
I was a little bit more um critical of certain pieces of the book, but
Okay.
now knowing the rest of the series, like I just can't be as critical because it does tie up really well. But if I were to give it, I think when I was 14 or 15, I gave it 4 stars.
Okay.
Um Today it's 6 stars because one, it's very topical.
Right.
The idea of oppression, the idea of complacency by people who are just living comfortably, like those conversations inside of one, a YA book that delivers it in a way that is just so intense. uh, I can't be more positive about it. I love this series.
Yeah, I feel like that the fact that it is aimed toward the YA crowd, I think is a really strong factor in terms of how the messaging comes across, because it can be like heavy handed. It can the in the beginning it's a little choppy. I don't think like the I don't know, the romance building. I guess maybe in your own head you can make more out of it and stuff. I like I said, I didn't feel that connected. Haymitch is a very mysterious character. I'm more interested in him. uh,
When I was a teenager, I hated Haymitch. I
ah,
thought Haymitch was an asshole because I thought that Haymitch didn't really care about whether or not Peeta and Katniss survive.
Interesting.
And in the beginning, you do get that vibe. You get
Yeah,
the idea
but
that
as an
as
adult,
an adult, it's a completely different
you
perspective.
understand the perspective of this mentor that had to go through 100, or not 100, but whatever amount of kids. And but how did he survive? You are now at the point of Haymitch being like old and kind of not with it
And
anymore.
you have to imagine, first and foremost, his games had to have been at least 10, 15 years before the 70. I don't remember what, I think he was the 50th Hunger Games. So I might be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure. Whatever. Um, he has seen 24 Hunger Games, if that's the case, since
It's a
he
lot of
won,
kids. That's a lot of
which
kids.
means that he has seen 48 kids that he was supposed to mentor, well, 46 kids that he was supposed to mentor die. He watched them repeatedly, over and over and over, get slaughtered in these games.
Yeah.
So to imagine that he wouldn't be traumatized by that,
Yeah.
not to mention the 23 kids that he also had to kill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
There's
and you got to remember, like, if the kids are not gelling with the capital people and the sponsors, and Haymitch tries to get them, make a fool out of himself, whatever. You don't even see what he actually does to gain sponsorships. Like, what does he say or any of it? So it's left to your imagination on that. Um, you know, he failed them, right? I mean, he wasn't able, or they failed him. They couldn't survive. That's the other thing. It's
there's
like,
this there's this complicated relationship that's happening between the mentors and the mentees. But as a teenager, I'm not quite, I guess, like putting those pieces together in the
yeah,
way that I can today. And that's why I personally think it's a modern classic, because when you read it as a teenager, which is who it's intended for, there's layers that you're just not quite picking up on. And it's not because you're unintelligent or anything like that. It's just that you don't have the emotional maturity or the life experience to understand what adults get to. There's tunnel vision in 16, 17-year-old kids that
right.
just aren't there when you're in your 20s, 30s, whatever. But I hated Haymitch as a teenager. I hated him. I thought that he didn't care about the kids that he was supposed to take care of. Um I just thought that he didn't care. And it was really sad because Katniss's mom also was struggling to care, and so Katniss just keeps getting failed by these adults in her life. And the only person that seems to care about her in these moments before you get to the actual games is Cinna,
Yeah,
who's like, my goal is to make you be the most standout person. I want this capital to see where you came from and who you are in a way that's authentic to you.
yeah.
That's Cinna's goal in the first book. And he's the only adult that really cares about her, from my perspective as a teenager.
Although,
Now, as
but again, I will say that with those scenes with Cinna, although great and stuff, again, Peeta gets put on the back foot. You get no time with Peeta during that kind of like, build up. I
but
mean, they're
Cinna's not Peeta's designer.
no
It's
who.
Portia.
Oh, Portia is the designer. That's why you don't see her as
Portia is the
much.
designer for Peeta, and Cinna
Mm,
is the designer for Katniss. So they
mm.
worked together. They did create like kind of a visual
Ensemble. Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a visual story for them. But their designers are technically separate. And if they wanted to portray two different people that their district didn't matter, they could realistically do that.
Yeah.
Now, do they do that? No, but it is it's an option.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, because I was gonna add, like, just with Peeta, especially at the last half of the book, being like so
Yeah.
like bootlicker, for toward Katniss.
Yeah.
I guess you just kind of don't get enough of Peeta, like leading up, to the games. You don't really see much of his perspective on anything, which is fine. I guess he's the token, love interest, right?
I'm usually very anti same book, different perspective. That's usually something I hate when authors do because it tends to feel like a cash grab.
Hmm.
It tends to feel like we've already heard this story.
But in this
Does it really
case,
matter? It absolutely matters in this case.
yeah.
And I think that it would be a very good book to know one, Peeta's backstory, like kind of what are his motivations beyond just his love for Katniss?
What's
What
he
are his
thinking?
what is he thinking? And how do these like emotional turmoil moments, like at the end of the book when he realizes that Katniss did this all for the cameras, that like even if she does care about him, it's not to the degree that he cares about her.
Right.
Like what do those look like for him and how does that translate into Catching Fire where it absolutely matters. Now I don't know if you know anything about Catching Fire, we won't go into it because maybe we'll go into it after you read it, but uh, especially the first book, I think it would be interesting to see what Peeta was thinking.
Hmm.
How did these romantic moments translate for him? What did he feel about Haymitch? Does he have the same perspective that Katniss has, which is Katniss believes that Haymitch is trying to protect Peeta.
Well, yeah, no, he specifically said that Katniss is Hamish's favorite.
Right.
You know.
So, and from Haymitch's perspective, yeah, Katniss is his favorite.
Hmm.
And you learn more about that later on. But from Katniss's perspective, she thinks that Haymitch fucking hates her.
Hmm.
And the only reason that like he actually starts working together with Katniss is because he sees the fight in her.
Right.
And the only way that he sees the fight in her is by him drinking less.
Right.
And and she's the one that's like, "We have to survive this. Get it together, you fucking asshole."
Right. 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 Right.
That's really where he like I don't know.
Like because of the couple of things, those couple of things for me, I'm gonna give it a 4.5 because like the book itself is like really good. It's fast paced. It keeps you intrigued. The action is good.
Yeah.
The characters are fun. Like I liked it. I liked it. It's the prototype for this kind of dystopian kind of crazy world. I think it has really strong themes and elements of like a fascist monarchy, just grinding system that destroy. Yeah, this is the system. This is the lottery. You must be taken away. These are the things. This is the stupid media that fucking will do anything for a good show. These are the people that are complete fucking morons and will just eat all the shit that the big fascist, conglomerate like kind of capital thing is all about. Like all of these elements are really strong, really well told. I think in that sense. It was just a couple of like little things where I'm like, well, yeah, this could have been cut shorter, and maybe more perspective from PETA, and maybe yeah, I mean, um, yeah, but it gives you stuff where it's like, oh, maybe they could write a whole perspective book just from PETA's version, or we definitely want to hear about Haymitch and like where and why and how, those kind of so that's great.
I demand a re-rating after you finish Mockingjay. I demand. If it's the same, fine, but
Okay.
you have to revisit your rating on Hunger Games, the first book,
Okay. All
once
right.
you finish
So
Mockingjay.
so so well, we could rate the whole series as a whole, and I will think about how I feel about yeah, after the read.
I think once you get to the end of Mockingjay, you're going to have a different perspective on the first book. Um, that's all I'll say because I don't want to spoil anything for you. I know you've seen the movies already and
Yeah, I
you
do.
have
It's
context.
the I have a little bit. Yes, I remember what especially the last two movies, I guess, centering around
Yeah.
the stuff.
But I think when you read Mockingjay and you kind of get the fleshed out story that like
Mm.
finishes up in Mockingjay, you're going to have a different perspective on the first book.
Okay. Okay.
On Haymitch, on the pacing, on PETA, on so many different things.
Okay. I
Because
mean, but the pacing. I said the pacing is great. I didn't.
I loved the pacing of the first book. I'll include this once we talk about Mockingjay, but I have a different opinion for that. Um I love this series and
Nah,
I'm
yeah.
really interested to see Sunrise on the Reaping. I've been listening to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, um,
How's that?
which again changes your perspective on the whole series. And I wasn't going to read it because Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is about President Snow. And if you don't hate President Snow, you're not reading the book.
Right.
That if you don't hate him, there's no nuanced take to have about President Snow, in
Man,
my
people
humble
want to
opinion.
have nuanced takes for the
No,
worst,
no.
most horrible, vicious, violent, disgusting people um because it's contrarian. That's all it is. You're doing it to do it. Not that it is the right thing to do.
Right, but frankly, you lack intellectual like prowess to actually believe that President Snow has anything positive to do with this. I'm sorry, hot take. I doubt.
Yeah.
I doubt.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't know, but if you enjoy President Snow, I don't know what to tell you. You're not reading the books.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Wow.
I wasn't
That
gonna read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes because I hated President Snow, and I
right.
knew
Yeah, you
that
didn't want to be stuck with a character that you did not enjoy, you know.
But I will say I have so I'm listening to it. I have about 4 hours left in Ballad of Songbird and Snakes and uh still have the same opinion of President Snow, but uh it's interesting.
Okay.
It does I don't want to say it changes my perspective on the first 3 books, but it is interesting because it's about um I don't know if it's the first Hunger Games that was ever done or if it's like one of the very early ones.
Okay.
But either way, it's President Snow story with the Hunger Games.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. But do you plan to keep going? Would you
Yeah.
read the whole series?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to keep going with the series. I definitely at some point want to rewatch the movies to kind of compare it against the series, the book series. I feel like I said, like I mean, this is just, this is great dystopian, the themes, the characters, the way, the reasoning, I think is strong. And 4.5 is a good rating, Winona. I don't know. You kind of went
Sure,
a little hard on me on that, I feel, but
good rating. And if I was rating it as a teenager when I first read it, I would have had a very similar rating.
okay. Okay, that
However,
yeah.
it, it's like I don't know what like your most favorite form of media would be, like your favorite anime or whatever. It would be like me, I don't know, saying that this is not as good as, you see it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
no,
all
I,
it is.
I I understand. I understand. And maybe because you do have the rest of the context
Mhm. Yeah.
fresh in your mind about,
Mhm.
it definitely gives you a stronger opinion on the first book. If you are just kind of getting back into, mostly forgot, like the movies have been over a decade now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much when I saw them. Then you're kind of like, and it's been some time. Some of these dystopian themes and elements and characters have also been in other properties since then. So maybe I'm a little worn, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying because I am aware that this kind of, I guess, story and elements were really prominently created within this novelization series, that
Mhm.
it like, it's like the prototype. This is where it started, like this kind of like, but I mean maybe not where it actually started. It could have been another book somewhere else, but I'm just saying the most popular version of this from here. So I give it all the flowers. I give it the props that
Yeah.
it deserves because it deserves the props. You know what I mean?
I think the other reason I rate it really high is because I think that books that I've read after the Hunger Games they've had a lot of similar themes. And so for example, I would say that Red Rising is kind of similar, like
Yeah.
it has a lot of similar um themes, and it has that dystopian kind of perspective. It has that science fiction.
Honestly, if we want to go back, I guess The Giver. The Giver.
Yeah, I mean, The Giver is obviously a classic, and if you haven't read The Giver, you should. It's quick, it's fun, it's interesting. Um, Fun is an interesting word to use,
Fun,
but
depressing.
it depressing, but also like intriguing, thought provoking.
Yeah.
If you're really into books that give perspective on political climates
Yeah,
and
that I think that's the big takeaway from this series and other series along this dystopian thread line is that these are politics when they're taken to their worst extremes, and
yeah,
generally it's from one type of politic that
oh,
you
for
see,
sure,
you
yeah,
know, and because this is a reminder, this is a history lesson. Hey guys, it could get worse. It definitely can always get worse because you
yeah,
allow for certain things to happen. Remember that. Remember why we don't want certain things to happen, guys. You know?
yeah. And it's important to note that like a lot of these books are talking about the idea of fascism and what happens when
Right.
you allow one piece of fascism to go a little
Right.
too far.
Right.
It's not about, oh, is this one thing a little bit fascist? It's about if you allow there's a temperature gauge. It's giving you a temperature gauge, and if you let it get a little too hot, it could trickle down to you too. You end up in the boiling water too. It's like,
You have to remember these things are systems. They create systems. People get
yeah.
indoctrinated into these systems of
Mhm.
control and power, and they start believing the propaganda, believing the authoritarian, okay? And
Right.
once they make you not believe what you see through your own fucking eyes, that's when they have you, and you are part of the problem. You are part of that system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So these are important takeaways. So these kinds of stories are definitely they need to continue. Hopefully we don't get to book burnings. Fahrenheit 451.
Book burnings. I mean, I
I mean,
think
we're already there. There are book burnings. What am I saying? So
I think the main point of a lot of these books, and this is why I push so hard for people to start reading, because I think that the reason I have such strong political opinions is because of fiction. I started reading very young, and I have been interested in dystopians and fantasies and sci-fis since I was a very, very young child. And I don't think that I would have been able to build my political thought process without some of these stories, without um where could it go if it went too far, like
yeah,
having the access of um the Hunger Games and so many different books that I grew up on, Divergent. I wasn't a huge Harry Potter teenager, but I enjoyed it as I got older. And all of these conversations really come down to it is what it is, can't be what it is. You can't allow it to become a complacent part of your life. You can't allow one person or one group of people to endure some type of trauma just because you're not experiencing it.
right.
And I like that's the reason I see this book as such a huge jumping off point in books that have followed it. And obviously there's books before it. There's The Giver,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
Fahrenheit 451,
I'm
the dystopian genre.
it definitely the popularity skyrocketed after the movies,
Mhm.
and I think the adaptation, it was a good um framework for a lot of action, and
Yeah.
it translated well visually around the time it came out, and I think that's what gave it the fire. So that's why I'm more like, oh, this is kind of like the prototype, but it's not really because there's been plenty of other
No,
prototypes. It's just like
I mean,
it's just
Star Wars was also dystopian, also talked about fascist
oh
regimes.
yeah, I mean, I Forever War. If nobody knows Forever War, go read Forever War. That's another great dystopian type of
I mean, Brandon Sanderson's
sci-fi.
Steelheart series, which is also YA and
Yeah,
has a lot of, I did not finish the series if I'm being completely fair, but it does have a lot
yeah,
of these themes as well. There's so many really amazing dystopians, and I want more to come out because
yeah.
I think that the way that our political climate has shifted in the last 12 years, um, would bring up new thought processes and kind of the idea of history repeating itself in, I guess, different ways. But also, these dystopians can be hard to read when you might be living in it.
And on that very positive note, leave a comment below on your favorite dystopian, sci-fi or fantasy or whatever, fiction. Let us know what you'd like us to read next. Hopefully, like I said, we'll continue this series and stuff. And I mean, there's other shit that we need to go back to and read, like the Court of Thorn and Roses. Uh,
Mhm.
what else? So yeah, so make sure to share, like, subscribe. Follow Winona at Winona. I don't know.
So
Well,
don't debut. I don't know.
don't follow her. Just follow Cage by the Page. And yeah, till next time, guys. Bye.